guys, Allie Bloyd here, and I'm so excited to share another episode of Marketing Inc. Today, we're talking about a really important topic, and that is why your ads are not working. If you are running any type of advertising campaign, of course the goal is to get them to work. But if you've been running any type of ad and it's not working, it doesn't mean you need to scrap the entire project. It means you need to identify where the breakdown is happening. Where were you ill prepared? Where is this process broken? Where are those chinks in the armor, so to speak? When you know that, you can then look at those specific things first, make the changes, and continue to test. So the first thing I want to talk about is simply that advertising is a testing process. You are never going to necessarily hit a home run from day one and never have to make a change. Things that start out really successfully right out of the gate, those things will change in terms of cost per lead, the amount of conversions that you're getting. It's going to change just simply based on what's going on in the world. So you cannot necessarily believe that you're never going to have to go through this process. If you do, you already have the wrong mindset for marketing. However, online marketing makes it very, very easy for us to identify these breakdowns. We're able to get data in real time and make changes much more quickly and efficiently than ever before. So this is an incredibly valuable episode today, so I want you to pay very close attention. The first thing I want to talk about is simply having a plan before you get started. That may seem like a no-brainer, but to some people, it's simply not the way that they work. You need to make sure that before you ever move forward into any type of advertising, you ultimately know what you want to see. And then really everything else we're going to talk about as well, but just make sure that there is actually a plan in place and that you're not winging it. I have rarely, if ever, seen a winging it campaign really succeed long term. The next thing I want to talk about is your budget. Please understand that every budget for every industry and every type of business really needs to be different. The reason being is that, number one, every business is different. Your margins are different. Your conversion rates are different. Your revenue goals are different. The cost of your products and services, those things are different. So don't go into this looking at someone else's budget as an identifier in terms of what you personally should be spending. I like to make sure that businesses are not spending too little, because spending too little can actually negatively impact your results. It's not something where if I'm able to get great results with $2,000 a month, I'll be able to get a fourth of the results for $500 a month. It just doesn't really work that way, because you have to have a portion of your budget for the education and engagement stage. So if you guys have heard me talk at all about the online marketing ad strategy, if you've paid attention to my challenges, anything like that, you'll know that that is an important part of the process. That is not necessarily designed to get conversions in and of itself. It can absolutely achieve that, but that is not the primary focus. So if you skip that step because your budget won't allow it, you're going to suffer. If you focus only on that step, you're missing the most crucial part, which is a focus on conversions. So please understand that your budget needs to be relative to your business, your industry, your products and services, but also with your expectations. If you go into this thinking that $1,500 a month is going to make you a millionaire, you simply are misguided. Please have realistic expectations. The whole focus of advertising is to see a return on investment. It's not to put $1 in and make $1 million out. So just be realistic with those goals, but actually do some research on what that budget should be. We could probably have an entire episode on marketing budgets. We've talked about this a lot in my challenges. I go over it in my programs, and there is actually a formula that we use. I built a budgeting breakdown spreadsheet, which literally allows us to plug in a budget, and we'll break it down through all three levels, from the monthly down to the daily. It splits between all the traffic temperatures. So it's really fairly advanced, but this is an important piece of the puzzle. You also want to make sure that your daily budget allows Facebook to hopefully get at least one quality lead per day. And again, that cost per lead is really going to be dependent on those other factors. So I can't really give you a flat number. You really have to do the testing to see what your numbers look like over time and go from there. The next thing is to give it enough time to work. So too many business owners have this mindset that they can start a brand new part of their marketing, such as digital, and that they're going to see results overnight, or that the results they see are the results that they will see long term. If you are working with a qualified agency or marketer, the process should be consistently optimized over time. There are going to be upticks and downturns, again, just like the way the world works. If you were running advertising before COVID hit, I can tell you that the results of those same exact ads that would have been crushing it completely turned around. Does it mean that the platform stopped working or that those ads were not good? No, because they were working. It means that the world changed. People run into different circumstances. Things become more important in their mind. Your messaging could have been totally wrong for that scenario. So just like with seasonal businesses, there are times of the year that your business is going to be booming, and there might be times of the year when it's slower. Those same ebbs and flows are going to work on online marketing platforms because it's really just people we're reaching here. The platforms that we use to reach them does not necessarily change their buying habits or their buying patterns. We really just want to use them to get in front of those right people at the right time, build those relationships. If you're expecting to be able to crush it in 30 days, again, you're misguided. If you have nothing to start with, it's going to take 3/4 of your first month just to get a complete setup done, running those initial testing ads. You're not going to see everything that you want to see. So give it enough time to build solid data and then analyze where you can improve. So the way that I work in my agency, we only do 6-month terms. And it's not because I'm trying to trap someone into a 6-month agreement. I personally would never hold someone hostage to a contract that I was not able to produce great results on my end for them. The reason being is, again, that first month is really going to be primarily made up of doing the setup, getting the assets created, and starting to develop those initial rounds of ads. Then we're going to need at least 4 to 5 weeks to run those ads, get those results, see what's happening, hear the conversations, look at the conversion rates. And for a lot of businesses, a 30-day window is simply not enough to even realistically see the results of those advertising. So for example, remodelers have a very long buying cycle. It could be 6 months before someone commits to a large project. That's got to be taken into account, because if I'm generating a lead and that lead is towards the beginning of the buying cycle, they may not convert for 6 months. So how am I supposed to realistically analyze those true return on investment based results if I don't have enough time to do that? That is not to say it's going to take everyone that long to convert. We've had clients that have brought in $100,000 jobs on day 3 of their campaign, ready to pay, ready to get started. You just can't expect that that's going to be everyone. So if we want to look at everything as a whole, we've got to look at those early converters and those realistic timeframe converters. That's different for every business. I have a lot of other types of businesses that we work with much shorter buying cycles, and that's something to consider as well. However, if you're a recurring revenue business and it's a monthly thing, you really need to understand how long people typically stay with you, and you need to do things on your end to get them to convert more frequently. You're still going to have to wait it out to see how many of those people work with you month after month. So again, time is very important. Do not try and expedite this process too much, because if you do, you're not going to get the results that you want. This is not necessarily instant gratification here. However, that is not to say you won't be able to get really fast results. We've done it time and time again. It's not to say you won't get a return on investment in the first 30 days. It's not to say that you won't continue to get a great return every single month. However, it's not always going to happen, and you need to go into it with that mindset. Otherwise, nothing else is really going to matter. So now that I've got kind of those fundamentals out of the way, we've got having a strategy, giving it enough budget, giving it enough time. The last thing I'll say is know your numbers. If you are very well aware of that cutoff point in terms of how much can I spend to acquire a lead without becoming unprofitable, everything else we talk about is going to be a lot easier because you will have hard data on what you need to know to be able to analyze your campaigns and shut them off when they're no longer going to serve you. It's not to say that a great campaign might not spike in price. Those same campaigns can come right back down, but you do need to be very aware of what that cutoff point is for you, because making emotional decisions on your ads is another reason why your ads are not working. You're making too many changes to them based on your emotions, and it's because you do not know your numbers. If you knew your numbers, you would have no problem making realistic decisions based on fact, based on data, instead of based on, oh, the price is going up, I better shut these off. Well, if those prices are still within your profitable range and they're still converting customers, why would you do that? So please don't make too many changes. Most importantly, don't be emotional about this process. Be rational, use data to guide you, which is a lot of what we'll talk about today. And also understand that knowing your numbers is the most important thing to being able to make those decisions. So now let's go into kind of the meat of this episode, which is what are those specific things that are causing your ads to fail? The first thing I want to talk about is your avatars or your buyer personas. If you are not living and breathing your buyer personas, you're already behind. We need to be so in tune with the people who are buying from us that we know their life story inside and out. Every business has what we call buyer personas or avatars. If you're not familiar with those terms, it's really more of a profile of your ideal clients. Every business is going to have a variety of them. We usually see at minimum 5, but it could go up to 15, 20 potentially. However, what you want to do is make sure that you have those very detailed, laid out for your entire team, and then look at those in comparison to your actual sales data. What you want to know is who is the primary avatar we serve, who's buying from us most frequently, who's spending the most money with us, who's converting easier. Because what you want to do is focus on those avatars. Let's not swim upstream here. Let's not go against the grain. Let's go with the flow of what people are already doing, because it's going to allow you to stretch your budget further. So if you have this small subset of customers that's 2% of your overall revenue, do not build campaigns around them. It is a waste of your time. Unless you see this as a huge untapped market that you've never put any effort into, you're probably not going to see great results. You need to be focusing more on those people who already want to work with you most heavily. So go through, really detail those buyer personas, those avatars, if you haven't already. And what those are going to consist of are really all the details that make somebody who they are. So age, gender, family makeup. So am I married? Do I have children? Am I single? Education level. Have I finished high school? Did I go to college? Do I have a certain type of career? Am I a stay-at-home mom? Am I a business owner? Income levels. Where am I in terms of having the disposable income to be able to afford your product and service? It's great to want to reach people of all types, especially if you have price points for a lot of different people. But I can tell you, trying to sell to people with no money is not fun for anyone, because it is an uphill battle and you should not be fighting those uphill battles. There's a lot of things you can do to more organically put the word out to those people, but don't spend money trying to reach them. You will lose it. When you have all of those things, you also want to dig deeper. What are their values? What are their ethics? What are their belief systems? What is it that drives them to do what they do and buy what they buy? You need to know those things. Where do they shop for groceries? Where do they work out? What types of clothing do they buy? What kinds of cars do they drive? What are the things that keep them up at night? What are the things that light them up with excitement? Knowing all of those details is going to make the messaging and the creative so much easier. When you have those different avatars, you really need to think about your offers and about your targeting. So these are the top 3 high-level things that you really need to focus on. Who you serve and who's going to be most profitable for you, to me, comes first. So once you know those things, building an offer around those avatars becomes easier. You do not want to sell the same thing to a stay-at-home mom with 4 kids that you would to a single male who works at a corporate job. Their lives are so significantly different that even if it's the exact same product or service, that offer and the way it's positioned is going to be different for each one of them. So remember, your offer is not your product or service. It's the way it's packaged and presented. It's a way to incentivize people to move forward and see this as something that they can't get anywhere else. There's a lot of different ways to build an offer. I'm sure we'll talk about that as time goes on. But you've got to build your offers around the avatars you're trying to serve. That way, everything else is going to be in sync. Once you have those down, you need to make sure that that targeting is correct. For most local businesses, that's going to start geographically. Zip code targeting is highly, highly effective because if you ask most people, their city is made up of zip codes that really determine the types of people in a lot of ways that live in them, their income level. Is this single families with, single mothers? Is this families with 2 parents and lots of children? Are these single professionals or couples? It is not always cut and dry, but if you really take a look at your city, you're going to be able to see those similarities. So understanding the makeup of the area that you live in is crucial. And you can sell to any of those people in any of those zip codes, but what you want to do is match those zip codes with those avatars that you are trying to reach. Not just the zip codes themselves, but you can actually exclude areas as well. So let's say I am trying to reach a homeowner. If you don't own a home, you're not going to be able to even want or need my product or service. So if I am an HVAC company, people who rent, they don't replace their own HVAC. It doesn't matter that they have an HVAC system. They're not my customer if they don't own a home. Because of that, I don't need to be wasting money targeting people who live in apartment complexes. It is not profitable for me to do that because they cannot buy from me, even if they, for whatever reason, were interested. You can exclude as low as a 1-mile radius. So there are certain targeting options that allow you to select really specific buildings, such as a convention center. Typically not anything that you're going to be doing for the most part. But I would really get clear on those primary zips that match your avatars. If you need to do exclusions, you can do that as well. There are certain people that can do a radius, that it doesn't necessarily matter which areas of the city as long as it meets certain other criteria. Those other criteria could simply be age, gender, potentially interest, family makeup, things like that. For a local business, if your area is not huge, you may really not want to get too much lower than age, gender, and location, because you don't want to make it more difficult on yourself. If you only have an audience of 20,000 people, how many conversions do you truthfully believe you're going to be able to get over time? You're going to exhaust that audience so quickly. And while that could be a very specific audience for you, you really can't stop there. You need to be advertising a lot more broadly. So you may ask, well, just because of someone's age, gender, and location, it doesn't mean they're interested in what I do. That's absolutely true. That is why we use education and content on the front end, because that will do the rest of the segmenting for us if done correctly. So when you have those 3 things, you're going to be set up for much more success. But if your ads are not working, those are the things I want you to look at first, not your creative, not your copy, not your landing page. I want you to look at your avatars, your offers, and your targeting that matches those. If you have already addressed all of those things and you still are not seeing results, you really need to look at, okay, is this an ad that was previously working and stopped working? Or has this campaign never gained traction? The way that you're going to address both of those scenarios is different. The first thing I would say is, if my audience, if my targeting, my offer, all of those things are good, are people stopping on my ad? So the only way to truly know that is with video. There's so many other benefits, but you can simply see a 3-second view. I consider a 3-second view really a pause. So they're pausing on your ad. It caught their attention at bare minimum. For something else, I mean, you could use impressions, but ultimately I really don't even consider impressions for the most part, because I don't know how long someone has to look at my ad for that to be considered an impression. Just because something's on my newsfeed does not mean that I gave it a second glance. So if you want to look at something like video and say, okay, are people simply stopping? That is number one. Even if you're not using video, that has to be the first step. So you need to think about this in terms of what has to happen before the next thing can happen. If we are advertising, our ad has got to catch someone's attention before we have the ability to convert them. So is my creative eye-catching? Does it reflect something that would catch the attention of that avatar? Is my headline strong? So those are the two things you need to look at. Sometimes people will only look at creative to, stop and get their attention. Sometimes it is the headline. Those two things really need to be addressed front and center. If you feel like you've tested those things, which please always be testing, if you've tested them and you know those headlines are strong in other areas, that creative is stopping people, then you're going to move on to that next step. If those things are not happening, that's what you need to work on first. So if we are getting people to stop, the next question would be, are we getting them to click? So a lot of times I consider that creative stops the scroll, but copy converts. So if you are stopping the scroll and they're taking time to look at that, if they're clicking on that read more, or if they're clicking on your photo, or if they're watching that 3-second view, but people are not clicking the link, you really need to look at your copy. So that headline is definitely part of the copy, but it's the first thing that you really need to address because it stands out more than anything else. The next thing is really the body copy within the ad itself. If creative stops the scroll, copy converts. It converts them to the click. It does not convert them to the sale. You are not selling online. You need to sell the click. You need to sell the next step, not the ultimate product. So if you're trying to sell somebody your high-end product within an ad, you're doing it wrong. It also could be that it just does not address what they're looking for. Stop making it about you. You need to make it about them. What is the benefit for them? What's in it for them? How does this transform their life? How does it take them away from pain or closer to pleasure? What is the transformation you're providing? Please just look at those things very simply and ask yourself, if I'm reading this, do I care? So that's a great test to do with your copy. Read a sentence and then ask yourself, so what? If it really doesn't matter, get rid of it. Try something different. Copy is such a powerful skill to have. Copywriting, and when I say copywriting, I don't mean like a copyright or a trademark or a patent. I mean writing copy for business, for marketing. The single most important skill that you can have. And that's because copy goes into everything. Unless you're doing strictly video ads, which, let's be honest, video script writing is copywriting, and they're still gonna have to go to a landing page and they're still gonna have to see follow-up campaigns. It's all copywriting based. So you don't need to be born as an expert copywriter. You need to learn the foundation of great copywriting. You need to look at frameworks that work and you need to model them. But if you don't know what those things are, you're not going to be able to identify why your copy sucks. So if you see that you are not getting clicks, let's look at that copy. If you see that you are getting clicks, we need to look at that next step. So what happens when someone clicks on an ad? They're taken to a destination. When I say destination, I mean either your funnel, your form, or your messenger bot. Those are really the 3 primary places that you're going to be sending people. If you are sending them to a landing page, let's look at that landing page. Let's use a tool like Hotjar potentially to see what people are actually doing on the page, which buttons are they clicking on, where are they kind of scrolling to and then leaving. Really look at that data, split test your headlines, headline, 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 number one. Please make those changes first, because if your headline on your landing page does not hook them the same way that headline on your ad needs to hook them, they're not going to read any further. It could also be that, again, your landing page does nothing but talk about you and your product, not what's in it for them. So a lot of these things are going to apply in a lot of different areas, but analyzing what's actually happening on that destination is crucial. So how far are they getting? If they're not getting very far, you know that it's, towards the top or at the beginning of that process that you need to change, and then you're going to work your way down. Stop changing the color of the button at the bottom of the page if no one's making it to the bottom of the page. Analyzing what's going on with your lead forms can be a bit trickier because you're not necessarily going to have that same data. However, there's just a lot of people making bad decisions with lead forms. You will hear a lot of people say that lead form leads are poor quality. And that can be true, but there are ways to significantly improve the results of those lead forms. So a benefit of a messenger bot and a lead form, couple of different reasons, but primarily you're keeping them on platform. So if you see that maybe those are working a bit better than your landing page, I would check how long it's taking that landing page to load. That can be a major issue that sends people right back to the platform they came from. They're not trying to wait around for your page to load for 10 seconds. So get those things addressed right off the bat. So if you're getting a lot of clicks, but you're not getting a lot of conversions, it's that destination that needs to be reworked. A lot of times you simply need to test different destinations. That's because they work differently with different markets and with different audiences. I've seen chatbots work phenomenally well for a lot of different markets and businesses. However, some audiences, such as an older demographic, they tend to struggle with them a lot more. And that's not to say everyone. I do not like to generalize people, but it's a very clear observation. Younger people have just been doing more on Messenger longer, so they kind of understand it a bit better. You will see a lot of hiccups with certain audiences that could cause them to not move forward. So you just really want to look at those things. But again, always be testing. Do not assume that what you have is as good as it's going to get, because it's not. It's never as good as it's going to get. We can always improve, and that has to be the goal. Always be learning, always be improving. That really is the key to success, in my opinion. So if you're getting a lot of leads from your ads, but you are not closing those leads, that is a whole different ballgame, but it's a very important one to discuss. So I have had clients over the years that have gotten amazing results in terms of generating those leads, booking appointments, and booking calls. So the way that we do it is we're always going to send someone to the opportunity to schedule a call, schedule an appointment, or potentially call the company right then. We do not just want to leave someone with fill out a form and you're done. It's not that it can't work. I was getting good results years and years ago, and that's what I did. But I was also doing a lot of the follow-up myself or checking on it to make sure it was done well. If you're not offering someone that next step, it may be that they're very hard to get on the phone. So I've had times when I was doing my own sales calls, a good number of months ago, and I had so many calls booked. I was literally on the phone for days, weeks, and actually months on end. I felt like that's all I was doing. I was living on the phone. I had signed up to work with a company that I needed their services. I'd heard good things. It was based on referrals from other people in my business. And I was like, yeah, I'm excited to work with them. Well, I signed up on their form. They did not give me an opportunity to schedule a call. Well, because of my busy schedule being on calls, I simply could not answer the phone when they called me. And they did call about 4 times. They didn't text, which would have been really nice because then I could have scheduled the call via text. If they had simply allowed me to schedule my call, I could have made sure I was available. Eventually, they stopped calling, and I haven't reached back out. I've just been busy, and it's not the top priority in my mind. For most of your leads, you are also not the top priority in their mind. It's not life and death for the majority of your businesses. And if it is, that's a little bit different. If you're more of an emergency type of business, you may have an easier time getting those leads on the phone, but people are busy. You also have no idea what situation they're in. So even if you do follow up immediately, let's say I'm in a doctor's office waiting room and I'm scrolling through my social media platforms. I see your ad, I sign up. Oh, my name gets called. Okay. So I close it and I go in. I can't answer the phone. I'm with the doctor. That's rude. So you call me in 10 minutes. I'm still in there with the doctor. I don't answer. Number one, most businesses give up after that. And that's a major problem. You're giving up on your leads way too soon. You, again, are not their primary concern in life, and you cannot act like it. Just because someone doesn't answer the phone and doesn't call you back doesn't mean they're not interested. It means their life is busy. They were not able to answer the phone. They didn't know the phone number. They're not checking their voicemail. They're not calling you back. They're taking their kids to school, picking them up from school, taking them to gymnastics. All of these things that our lives are just filled with, it just distracts from you as a business owner. If you are in business, you need to take a personal responsibility in making sure that your leads are never given the opportunity to forget about you. Until someone says, I'm not interested, stop calling me, I have no use or need for your product or service anymore, that really should be the last time that you give them a call. It's also important to do multi-channel follow-up, like I said. So giving those people the opportunity to book, to me, is priority number one. Second, doing that multi-channel follow-up, because people are different. There are some people that will not answer a phone number they don't know. There are some people that never check their voicemail. There are some people that don't get your emails, they don't check their emails, or they get so many that they delete anything that doesn't look like it's really for them specifically. 99% of text messages do get read. So text message marketing, if you are not already doing that, you're already missing out. But ultimately, I encourage you to do all of them, Facebook Messenger included. If you're doing all of those things, you're giving those leads every opportunity to respond back to you in a timely manner in the way that works best for them. The question or the problem can then become, how do you keep track of it? That's something that we deal with in our agency. That's something that we help all of our students set up. There are ways to manage those things, but you do definitely have to stay on top of it, or you will miss things. If you expect every lead to call you back, it's not going to happen. You need to be checking those text message responses, because people simply will say, hey, what about 11 a.m. tomorrow? And if you don't check until 12 p.m. the next day, you've already missed your window of opportunity. So please take that lead follow-up process very seriously. Don't give up too soon. Give them an opportunity to choose the time that works best for them. That simply is going to reduce your pressure in terms of follow-up if you have a specific time that certain people want to talk or meet. So I highly prefer it. I've only run into really one company that didn't like doing it that way. And to be perfectly honest, it's because they were not checking the calendar system, and that's really about it. They just wanted phone calls to come in, and some people are going to do that and some people aren't. So you're going to win some and you're going to lose some, but you just have to make the decision of, if I'm not willing to do these things, then I'm going to lose more than I'm going to gain. So it might be a better idea for you to focus on one single method. However, it just may not always work in your favor, and you need to be willing to accept that. The next thing is to really, really, really fine-tune your sales skills, okay? The phone call is crucial. The phone call or that initial appointment, most people are not just taking an appointment without ever having that phone call. However, if you do give someone the opportunity to book their actual appointment, well, you've sold the appointment, which is where that selling takes place in person, and that's huge. So if this is a phone call, you need to remember that your receptionist is not a salesperson, okay? I've seen this far too many times. If you have someone who's used to answering the phones, that does not mean they're qualified to sell. And this is a lead, not an existing client, not a client that's necessarily ready to hand over their credit card, this person still needs to be convinced at times to move forward. And sometimes it's really very simple. They're just not saying the right thing on the phone. I have heard everything from, super low energy, people who truthfully sounded like this call was a frustration for them to even take. People will get very frazzled and try and rush people off the phone at times. Ultimately, if you allowed them to schedule a call, you need to have this script in place. And it doesn't have to be word for word, but you need to be systemizing what people are saying. Otherwise, they will leave it up to themselves and you're going to get good days and bad days, or maybe you're just going to get all bad days. I would also highly encourage you to listen in on those phone calls, because you don't know what someone is saying until you listen. You do not know what those conversations are like until you listen. And unfortunately, people are not always honest. I've seen it way too many times at this point. If I'm an employer or an employee and I'm the one that's taking those calls and none of the leads are converting, when my boss comes to me and says, hey, what's happening with these leads? We're getting a lot of them, but none of them are converting. Do you think I'm going to say, well, I really just don't care that much, so I don't give them a lot of info on the phone, or I don't answer every call, or I don't try and get them to schedule an appointment? No, they're not going to say that. They're going to say, well, none of them are really qualified. None of them are really interested. They're just not good leads. That is what they're going to say, because people like to take the blame off of themselves. You have to be willing to inspect what's actually going on in your business. People respect what you inspect. If someone knows you're going to be checking it, best believe they are going to be paying a lot closer attention to every word that comes out of their mouth. And if you give them a system and a script, they're going to be following it. Otherwise, they know that you're going to, let them know that that's not the way it should be done. So please, unfortunately, do not take someone's word for it, because it's not always going to be truthful, sadly. If you also have somebody who's looking to set appointments, realize that an appointment setter, that's actually like a job for a lot of businesses. It's not a receptionist type of job. It can be. Anybody who's answering the phone can very easily be trained to do what needs to be done. But if you're not willing to train them, don't expect them to automatically know what to do. The most important thing is to go straight for the appointment. Focus on setting the appointment and nothing more. Do not let the lead control that call. If you are trying to transition someone from a promotional type of offer, like a loss leader, to a more ongoing or regular priced offer, that is sales, okay? That is not just receptionist phone call behavior. You also need to have a very clear transition call. This is primarily for those recurring revenue businesses I was talking about. So if someone can just use me whenever they want to, of course they hopefully will moving forward. But if I have nothing to offer them at the end of that period, the conversation may not even happen, number one, or number two, it may be like, well, thanks for working with us. I hope you work with us again soon. It's not very convincing. It's not very compelling. And you're not going to have an idea of how many people will work with you long term. So even if those people would be coming back week after week or month after month, you're simply not going to have the data sooner. Have something to transition them to. Have some type of offer, some type of package that gets them to, at bare minimum, share their experience and share their reasoning for not moving forward. You are going to be able to get so much more information from the people you lose than from the people you win. So pay very close attention to anybody who you do get on the phone but does not want that next step, or that takes that next step but does not work with you. Too many businesses ignore that because they really don't want to know. And what I want you to do is be excited to see that data, because when you do, you know what changes you can make. Sometimes it's as simple as sending a survey when it's done. If it was a positive response, redirect them to another offer page to get them to schedule that next thing or buy that next thing, whatever makes sense for your business. If this is something that's more of a one-time thing, you need to be paying even closer attention, because you may not get another opportunity. They may just go ahead and buy with someone else, then you've lost your shot. Those are really kind of the core components that you need to be considering when you look at why your ads are not working. If we simply reverse it and you want to know how to get your ads to work, that's exactly what you need to do. I teach all of these things that we've discussed today in my programs like Local Marketing Mastery, which just opened its doors again on Friday. We're about 50% sold out already. Very, very exciting. I love doing these programs, but all of these things are covered. We're going to talk about setting up your entire social marketing system from start to finish. Everything we've talked about is going to be covered so that you have a very clear idea that, number one, things were done right the first time, but also to be able to very clearly have systems and processes in place to allow you to analyze things over time so that you have an understanding of if they're working or if they're not working. If you are a marketer or an agency and you're not helping your clients with everything we've talked about today, you're doing it wrong. Local businesses do not always have these things. I would say very rarely do they have any of these things. So please keep in mind that you need to be a consultant, but also provide a system and not just set up some ads for them, because the ads alone will not change your business. It's the system you create around them. So I'm also really excited to announce that I just launched a beta program specifically for local marketers and local agency owners. This is something I never intended to do, but after so many people ask us about it, I figured if this is what people want, I am happy to share all of my tips and strategies and sales processes and fulfillment systems, anything like that that will help them grow and ultimately serve other local businesses more effectively. I love working with local businesses, but I'm never going to serve all of them myself. I know that these marketers are going to be out there working with these businesses, and if I can help them be better for their clients, the goal of helping local businesses everywhere is going to be achieved. If you're interested in learning more about that, you can go ahead and schedule a call. Just hop over to allybloydmedia.com/local. Either program, that's the same link that you can sign up at right now. And ultimately, we're going to let you know if this might be a good fit or if there's something different that you might want to start with. Very excited to have just added funding to our repertoire, so to speak. This is the ability for us to allow someone to spread payments over 2 to 3 years if that's what they need to get started. However, we also have some in-house payment plans, different options like that. So I really try and be flexible to as many different business owners, whatever stage they're in, whatever budget they might have. But truthfully, I believe that what I teach is very important, and I want to make that more accessible. So again, I'd invite you to go ahead and schedule a call. Local Marketing Mastery is starting on the 29th of June. The agency beta is going to be 50% off for this first round so that we can really, fine tune the process of what you're teaching. We only have a limited number of spots and we've already sold several of them. So if that is of interest, you better act fast because we're really capping it out at a certain number, and I would hate for you to miss out on that. That's going to be starting mid-July. So thanks again for being here today. I hope you enjoyed the episode, and we hope to talk to you on a call really soon.